You've caught us coming back from Disney Place. Okay, bye. Bye. Man, I'm just in a Disney move. I'm gonna watch Beauty and the Beast. I don't know which one. Disney loves remaking their classic movies into live action, but is it really worth it? Well, I'll be conducting an experiment to see if these remakes are truly worth watching over the original. But first, some rules. I'm only going to cover the more recent remakes, and ones that are more popular, because I do not care for 101 Dalmatians. And movies like Maleficent don't count, because it's not really a remake. This still leaves me with a lot of movies to watch. This is gonna take a while. Alice in Wonderland is so overwhelming. There's so much weird imagery and scenes that quickly change to the next weird scene. There isn't any plot to this movie. It's just Alice meeting new wacky characters every 5 minutes. These include Dumb and Dumber, paint-sniffing men, and a vaping worm. There's also the Cheshire Cat, but he's cool. He can stay. Well, I'm impressed by how well animated the movie is. There's absolutely nothing that keeps me wanting to watch more. It's not even like I'm rooting for Alice to get home, because it doesn't even seem like she wants to get home. She just wants to follow this lunatic around. Everything does end up being a dream, and it made Alice appreciate her normal life better, but all that comes up at the very last minute. I guess being made in the 50s would do that to a movie. This remake actually threw me for a bit of a loop, because I thought it was far from the original. We follow a 19-year-old Alice as she explores Wonderland, and all the characters mention that she returned. So I thought this was like a pseudo-sequel to the original, but no, they're only referring to a fact that she's been there when she was younger. Phew! The rules are still intact. This plot is very different from the original, because this movie has a plot, and that one didn't. Which is fair enough, because I don't think the original would do as well nowadays. Alice is prophesized to slay a beast. What the hell? She meets all of the usual characters, and they look freaky. Like, look at these two. And the Queen of Hearts. Ah, get away from me! This is a Tim Burton film, so of course, everyone looks kind of gross. The Mad Hatter is actually more of a character, which is a nice upgrade from the original. Burton gives him a traumatic past, which is something I didn't expect. The Queen of Hearts is in this movie a lot more, instead of rearing her ugly head at the end, so we can slowly get used to her head. One thing that's always hard when remaking an animated film in live action is how wacky shit can get, because it's obviously easier to do when it's animated. This leaves the movie feeling more watered down, as the strangest thing here is a vaping caterpillar. They still have the card guys here, and I like how they look. The Queen of Hearts Kingdom is fun, with its heart aesthetics. Even this executioner's axe is the heart. Hello, it's me, Axel. I really like that guy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to do my taxes. Yo, no way! There's action in this bitch as well? While the prophecy stuff was cool and all, there wasn't anything that interesting happening, and Alice isn't even a great protagonist. I'd much rather see other characters because they are so much more interesting, while Alice has this dumb look on her face for the whole movie. I do think the movie succeeded in bringing something new to the concept. Taking the base idea and turning it into something fresher for the time is what every remake should at least try and do. Still keeping to what made the movie special in the first place, but adding stuff to make it worth watching. I can only hope the other movies do that too. This movie holds up surprisingly well, considering it came out in the 50s, 75 years ago, and somehow it's better than most modern movies. Everyone knows the tale of Cinderella, I'd hope. Dirty house slave, evil stepmother, fairy godmother, glass slipper. All this stuff is iconic now. Cinderella being a kind person, even to those who forced her to be their slave, is really compelling. And this balance with her talking rat friends helped break up the movie. I think the rats actually get more screen time than Cinderella, because the actual plot isn't that captivating. Like, it's cute and all, but it doesn't have as much staying power. Luckily, this does work with the movie's hour and 10-minute runtime, which is probably the cause of the time, but it really works to the movie's benefit. They don't waste time and get right into it. We get all the backstory we need in the opening narration, which is like 2 minutes. I like all the animals here. They are really entertaining to watch and add that Disney charm. I think without them, the film would be fucking boring. No one wants to watch a maid clean stairs for an hour. The rats and other animal friends help when Cinderella needs an entourage, and a horse is the carriage driver, which I thought was funny. All of this is thanks to the fairy godmother, who is so sassy, I love it.
Yes, it's lovely, dear. Good heavens, child. You can't go in there.
Other than old sponge hair here, none of the other characters have much going on. And you'd think at least the prince would have some personality. He is the main love interest after all. Nope, He doesn't show up until it's ball o'clock, and only has 2 lines. What? Also, massive plot hole in this movie. When the fairy godmother gives Cinderella all the things, she says they'll turn back at midnight. Yeah. But when it's midnight, everything does turn back except the glass slippers. Now I get they're essential to finding the mystery girl, but they probably didn't think anyone would think of that. But I did, Disney. Suck my toe. One more thing I was wondering. When you think of Cinderella, you think of her in her blue dress. Well, in this movie, she wears only white. Suck my toe. The 2015 remake of this classic tale is the same movie in 2015. That's the best description I can think of. This is a remake that doesn't really try to do much to stand out, but there are a few additions that make me mixed. On one hand, the prince is actually a character with words to say. We are introduced to him early on, and my god, I can't believe he actually has a personality. He doesn't want to be partnered up with some princess for benefits of the kingdom. He wants to get dicked down. How selfish of him. In the original film, the ball is open to everyone in the kingdom by default, just so the prince can meet someone. But here, it's his meeting with Ella that pushes him to invite other maidens, instead of the usual royalty that he invites. That's a change I like. A change I don't like, however, is that half the movie is devoted to showing us Ella's backstory, and how her stepmother came into the picture. I would have liked to see this more if it didn't go on for 45 fucking minutes. I get that in more modern day, we need to establish characters and motivations. But for this long? Everyone already knows the story, so why take forever to get to the point? I thought we might have gotten some depth for the evil stepmother, but we don't. The movie does give us an in-canon reason for why Cinderella is called Cinderella. It's because she had ash on her face once. Okay. There's also a lot of crying. All of it's from Ella, but can we turn off the hose, please? The original Cinderella was obviously living in the same shitty situation, but she was more optimistic and made the best of her life, where this one just cries every chance she gets. There's also a lot of really minor changes from the original that don't add anything, so it makes me confused why they did it. Cinderella's dress is now blue, which is the color she's most associated with, and her carriage is now gold. I know this movie is already shown to not really be dedicated to remaking it one for one, but like, why change this? I don't get it. Oh, and fairy godmother is hot now? I miss the sassy grandma we had. She was nice. Oh, and what rhymes with nice? Mice! And they are barely in the movie. They are just there to become horses later on. This is what I meant. If the rats weren't in the original, it'd be boring. Because this movie goes for an hour and 50 minutes, there really isn't 40 minutes worth of story to play with. So that's probably why the earlier stuff feels so forced. I think that sums up how I feel. I think the original was good for the time, but the story doesn't hold up too well when you try to make it in modern times. Now it just feels so basic and straightforward. And this remake doesn't give you enough reason why you should watch it over the original. The stuff with Kit was an improvement, but not enough, I think. And the plot hole still stands. I need answers, damn it. This movie's such a vibe. It's just a kid hanging out with this bear and panther as they try to escort him to a human village. They need him to leave the jungle because there's a tiger after him. There's a lot of fun and catchy songs, with the bare necessities probably being one of the most iconic Disney bops. Blue is such a homie, and Shere Khan is a cool villain, even though all he wants is a nice snack. He has pipes though. Of course, the plot of the movie is still pretty bare bones, like the last couple of originals, but the characters definitely carry. This whole journey to the man village doesn't really feel like a journey, because Mowgli is just wandering around for half of it. Actually, this is very similar to the original Alice in Wonderland. Kid goes around a jungle, meeting new characters, except this movie has monkey dancing. I've also noticed that the movies around this time like to linger on scenes because nothing happens in the film. Yeah, this is a chill movie. I think it's slept on compared to others. Holy shit. Finally, a good remake that retells the story of the original while adding new things to it to make it better. Sorry, almost everything. I'm quite shocked how much of an improvement this is over the original. Firstly, I like to state that the original is still a good movie, but I believe that you should just watch this one if you want some Jungle Book. The characters are well executed because everyone feels really important. Baloo and Bagheera are still the best gay dads for Mowgli. And the man cub in question is a lot more enjoyable to watch. We even get a bit of backstory to show how Mowgli ended up in the jungle and why Shere Khan hates man. The devious tiger is the biggest improvement over his original counterpart. Then, he was kind of threatening I suppose, but was also kind of goofy. You remember those pipes? Well, not here, as this guy's a fucking menace. He carries so much menacing energy with him, and even has a different strat in this film. He kills the wolf alpha, and waits there until Mowgli returns to get his revenge. Oh yeah, he's even voiced by...
My face should not remind you of what a grown man can do.
Is that Knuckles? The jungle and all of its inhabitants feel like this tight-knit community with everyone kind of knowing each other. It's got small town vibes. I would hate to live in this small town, where Kaa and King Louie are hanging around. Both of these characters are terrifying, and Louie's so damn big. Why? And Kaa is grooming this kid. At least she gets what she deserves. This movie also flows really well, so I was thoroughly entertained throughout. The ending also feels really climatic, as everyone's fighting Shere Khan with fire raging behind them, and Mowgli kills the striped prick. That definitely didn't happen before. I will say that the only thing the original has over this one is that the songs slap way harder there. The same songs are in this movie, but they're lacking that sauce. This movie's the highest rated remake out of all of them on Rotten Tomatoes, so that tells you a lot. Beauty and the Beast came out when Disney was at its peak in the 90s, and you can just tell while watching. It just oozes charm, and has a lot of heart, dealing with a pretty lady and a hairy fella falling in love. I think the two characters and their relationship is handled really well, and feels natural even with the ticking clock. I love the little detail of the characters' clothing, representing if they're good or bad. Like Gaston wears red because he's a dickhead, while Belle wears blue because she's not a dickhead. The Beast starts off wearing red when he's presented as big and scary, but eventually dawns blue when Belle realizes he's not a bad guy. It brings me to tears. I was actually kind of shocked how nice the Beast was at the start of the movie, because he takes Belle as his prisoner, then proceeds to give her a bedroom and offers dinner. He actually has a really nice character arc, which is also refreshing in this Disney history rewatch. He learns to love Belle and lets her go when she needs to save her dad. Loser! I really enjoyed all the little household item characters because they bring that whimsy. Gaston is a fine villain. He doesn't do anything to really stand out that much, but that's not really necessary in the story.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
The music. The music is great. But I have a probably hot take that I'll save for the remake review. Oh, and the animation is excellent. Like, I can see why they peaked here. Yeah, I can't help but love this movie. I really have nothing bad to say about it until I watch the remake. Golly gosh, Disney has done it again! This movie is so much better than the original, which was already so good. Now, was it necessary to remake a movie that came out in the 90s? No, but they took the source material and just added stuff, which makes it an overall better experience. They add a scene at the very start, under the narration, so we can see the cursing of the beast, and some of the characters are foreshadowed to which pieces of junk they'll be. Belle's mother is brought up a few times, and we even get to see why she isn't around anymore. There's a new character, Agatha, who is revealed to be the Enchantress in disguise. The townspeople of the village end up remembering the castle when the curse is lifted, and actually connect with the antique characters. And this movie has a few new songs which I also really enjoyed. All this stuff is pretty small additions, but make the overall watching experience more engaging. But there's a bigger change that I really like. LeFou has gotten himself a massive character upgrade. This time around, he actually isn't that cool with Gaston's evil doings, and in the climax, he switches sides. I can't help but love this, and it makes LeFou not just another evil guy. Oh yeah, and Maurice is a fucking weapon.
Every time I close my eyes, I picture Maurice stranded alone, and then when I open them, he's...
Belle is played by Emma Watson. Shouldn't you be doing spells and shit? I haven't seen Harry Potter. The Beast and her relationship is done better here, I think. It wasn't bad the first time, but there are more scenes of the two getting to know each other, and you can see how much they have in common. They both read, they both joke around, and they both have dead mothers. Oh, that's probably why her mother is mentioned so much. But it also connects Belle and Maurice more. Their relationship is pretty cute. The Beast transformation from arsehole to charming fella is done more gradually, which feels a lot more natural instead of flip-flopping all the time. The antiques as well are all done great. The whole rose petal timer is given more weight, as there's a scene showing the guys turning more into their items. And at the end, when time is up, everyone fully turning is actually pretty sad. Why am I sad over a clock? Oh, I almost forgot. This movie adds this book that can allow the Beast to go anywhere. Yeah, he can just leave. He doesn't, because he knows that he doesn't belong anywhere looking like Chewbacca. This moment does allow Belle to find out how her mother died, but the whole book thing seemed like the most unnecessary part. But it's only for like 2 minutes, so I don't really care. I have to mention how good the CGI is, and I actually think the songs are all done better in this movie. Is it fair to say that music that came out in the 90s is outdated compared to 2017 music? Yeah. But I can't help but think that the music in the original feels so flat and underwhelming compared to the soundtrack here. Overall, it really comes down to if you want to watch this movie animated or in live action, because both are very solid. I'd rather watch the live action version, and it's my favourite remake out of all of them. It just takes the weaker parts of the original and really makes them better. This is a movie about bullying and gossiping, because that's all that happens in this hour-long film. Now, I've never actually seen Dumbo before, but I assumed that Dumbo flying would be a big deal. Sadly, I was completely wrong, as that very important element, that is the character's whole thing, doesn't even happen until the last 5 minutes. Dumbo's meant to fly, that is all. I wasn't even joking before when I said all that happens is bullying and gossiping, because these elephants represent bitchy old ladies as well. But I wish they had some sort of punishment, because they disappear after a while. It's also really distracting that every animal talks in this movie, except Dumbo and his mother. They are the characters you would want speaking. The only part I somewhat enjoyed was the scene where Dumbo gets drunk, then has a trip. But this doesn't serve much purpose, and goes on for a long time. What a waste of time! I think this movie definitely deserves a remake. The live-action Dumbo remake is actually better than I thought it'd be. While it did improve a lot over the original, there's a lot of new stuff to keep it feeling fresh. The first 40 minutes speedruns the original plot, and then takes Dumbo to this bizarro Disney world. Of course, a greedy businessman wants to profit from the CGI elephant, and we have our movie. It's a fun enough plot in my opinion. There's actually human characters for us to follow instead of just one. I can't say I'm a big fan of any of the characters, but they do the job. I know bashing on kid acting is a low blow, but I don't like the kid acting. I was actually surprised with Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton being here. Dumbo flying has been given the weight it deserves, and him reuniting with his mum is the best part of the movie. They do this by making sure you care for Dumbo, which I did, and the ending was really nice. They even kind of managed to include that scene I liked in the original, without having to intoxicate the child elephant. They did remove the old lady elephants, and none of the animals talk, but those elements didn't need a return. You can probably tell that I like this version a lot more than the original. And I think this needs some love. It's not the best remake out of all of them, but it's still got a lot of heart. Aladdin follows a monkey, a genie, a rug, and a dude. Best movie, give it an Oscar. I believe this one to be one of the most iconic Disney movies, and it's my favorite out of all the originals. Disney was cooking in the 90s. There's so much of that Disney magic flowing from every hole it has. All the characters are just so great, but the genie is on another level. Robin Williams brings so much life and depth to the character. He also looks really menacing at the end when Jafar's in control. Aladdin is a very good protagonist who is extremely likable, and Jasmine is such a girl boss. And fun fact, she was the first fictional crush I had when I was a child. Rewatching the movie for this video, I remember thinking that Jafar was a basic villain, which he is, but it really works for what this movie was trying to do. A story about two people falling in love doesn't need a complex villain, I think. The actual love story is pretty generic by today's standards, with Aladdin learning to be himself, but it's the magical elements which makes it stand out. And do I need to mention the music? Again, Disney peaked here. The animation is eye candy, and is still so solid today. And there are a few Easter eggs to past Disney movies, which I don't think was a mainstream idea just yet. So that would be crazy to experience. This movie is just so good, and what sucks is that I know a lot of people who haven't even seen this movie. If you haven't, I demand you do! By the way, Aladdin fumbles the hardest out of every fictional character there is. The Aladdin remake was so close to being just as good as the original, but it suffers from the usual remake bullshit. First of all, there's an added 30 minutes of runtime, so I don't think it's paced as good as the original. Iago only talks like a parrot instead of having full sentences, which is a downgrade in my opinion. I liked him before. It even changed Aladdin's street rat getup. Why did they need to do that? I don't understand. There's a lot of small changes that I don't really like, but I won't bore you with them. Okay, I'll tell you. The carpet doesn't have as much personality. The Sultan is boring. Aladdin and Jasmine's meeting is rushed. Jasmine doesn't have her usual girl boss energy. Aladdin is a nervous wreck. And lastly, the whole climax is a lot less interesting. Aladdin and Jasmine's actors are pretty close to the original. But Jafar is the worst part of the movie for me. He looks, sounds, and acts like a twerp compared to his animated self. He's just not threatening at all. And I just hate him. It is cool that he was once a thief like Aladdin, to kind of put the two in the same boat, but That's it. Now, if you want to talk about a good character, Will Smith's genie carries the movie on his big blue CGI shoulders. He's doing his own thing compared to just copying Robin Williams. He's a lot less zany and has his own thing to do. This time, Genie is out of the lamp a lot and hangs around Aladdin to help him get the girl. He's probably the best wingman you can have. He's also trying to woo Jasmine's handmaid. The scene where he puppets Aladdin's body to make him dance is fun. I like it. I also appreciate that this whole tale is told by Genie after he becomes human, which kind of helps something I thought about the original. See there, when Genie was freed, he still had his powers, but here he just becomes human. Overall, I think the original is way better, but this is still a fun movie to watch. It's got practically all the same big moments and songs, so it just comes down to what Genie you want. The Lion King goes full throttle, focusing on the main parts of Disney movies that make them so special. Great songs and talking animals. Since the movie came out in the 90s, of course it's a great film, but I can't say it's one of my favorites. Don't get me wrong, I did really like it. I just prefer other Disney outings. This is a classic revenge story, with Simba needing to take his place as king, and dethroning Scar, who is evil. Scar is a great villain, menacing, calculated, and just all around a sick bastard. Not many Disney villains can say they've killed someone. Speaking of dying, this movie mentions death so many times, which is weird considering who the movie is targeted towards. Mufasa and Simba had a cute relationship before he got trampled, and I'm glad he's getting a whole movie about him. A lot of the songs I had completely forgotten about until I rewatched it, and they are all really solid, but you could have guessed that. I really don't know what else to say. The characters are all a joy to watch, the plot's alright, and there's a solid villain. I don't think I'll be watching it again anytime soon. That's right, no more lines for me. Dang it. For this review, I want you to go back and rewatch the last review, because this remake is literally the original, just again. Nothing was changed around, added, or removed. It's just the original but in live action. This is probably for the best since the first one was already very good, but this feels the most lazy. And this movie made $1 billion. The only thing I saw that was different was there was actually more animals living in the sanctuary, but that's a tiny change. All the animals look very realistic, but all the lines look the same. And yeah, you can tell this is Scar, but not really. All the music is still solid, so the only deciding factor is if you want Seth Rogen in your Lion movie or not. Now let's watch a movie about dogs making out. Lady and the Tramp, in my opinion, is the movie that is the most forgotten. I didn't remember it existed. It's a very cute movie about a stray dog and a house dog falling in love. It's really romantic, and it's just two dogs. I really liked all the characters, with the titular Tramp being my favorite. He's an actual hoe, who is known for barking around, if you know what I'm saying. No, I do not. I do wish the romance side was a little more drawn out, but that's really the only thing I didn't like. There's even some human characters who are pretty good as well, even though we don't see them much. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was it this movie that originated the two people eating the same spaghetti noodle then kissing? I feel like it did. I don't think this movie is probably really underrated, and it's the best movie from the 50s era, I think. It holds up well, and nothing really aged poorly. I think this is an improvement? I'm not really sure, because this remake does the classic remakey thing where they make tiny little changes that don't really impact anything, but I can't help but notice. They change Jacques' gender from boy to girl. We see the human characters more. The aunt is only dog sitting instead of babysitting. And the Tramp doesn't get some here. It's the same case as the Cinderella remake. Why would you purposely make these changes when they don't serve some importance? Luckily for me, there's other bigger changes that I like, so I'm not getting mad at the movie about dogs flirting. We get a backstory for why the Tramp is a stray, and it makes more sense why he's so independent and against being a house dog. I hate seeing pets being abandoned. I blame the Pokemon anime for instilling this fear into me. There's also more time spent building the relationship between the CGI dogs, which was the main complaint I had with the original, so that was nice. Speaking of the CGI dogs, am I the only one that thinks the Tramp looks kind of scary? In the original, he looked so happy walking around, but in this one he's giving me serial killer vibes. It definitely took me a while to get used to the look. The movie itself is still pretty good. The original still holds up, but this movie being more recent makes it more enjoyable to watch. It doesn't do anything I dislike, but it's still not one I'll watch for a while. This was the 4th live-action remake in 2019, and you can tell by the quality. Look at all of them. Dumbo was okay and changed a lot for the better, but I don't think many people know it exists. Aladdin was done well. The Lion King was the exact same as the original with no change being made. And Lady and the Tramp is just another movie that no one knows exists. Can't say any of these were worth the effort. Except Aladdin. But let's hope they get better from now on. Mulan is a very sexist movie, which was probably the point, but it still shocked me. It's about a girl who goes to war disguised as a man to save her father's life. That doesn't sound like the most interesting movie out there, but is helped by her companion Mushu, who is the cutest little dragon, voiced by Eddie Murphy. I think it makes the movie more enjoyable, because all the other side characters are so hard to care for. Even Li Shang. The plot itself isn't all that great either. Like, most of the movie is dedicated to training the soldiers to fight the Huns, but they hardly even fight them. The only confrontation, at the end, is for like 5 minutes. And the leader of the Huns, who I refuse to learn the name of, is boring too. I hate the standard, oh, I'm evil stuff. Like, what makes you tick, buddy? I thought I'd like this movie more, but there's still things I disliked. This little bug guy does not need to be here. There's only like 4 songs, which feel horseshit into the movie, because it's Disney's thing to have songs. They all aren't that great, except I'll Make a Man Out of You. I would honestly rather they didn't have the other 3 songs. By the way, I love how different this granny's singing voice is compared to her talking voice.
An apple for serenity, a pendant for balance.
Beat of jade.
Last criticism, I swear. When Mulan gets discovered as a woman, yuck. She says that it wasn't meant to go this far. What do you mean? What did she think was gonna happen? Positives. I'm a big fan of how well the movie uses its tone. At the end of one of the songs, everything is cheery and upbeat, but does a complete 180 tone-wise, and shows this destroyed village. That was just a fantastic scene. The ending also ignores the Disney trope of the main character getting with the love interest, and it would have destroyed what the movie's about if Lee and Mulan got together. Mulan shows that she doesn't really want to be a boring housewife to some man, so if the two got together, I'd have to kill someone. And the two didn't have any chemistry anyway. If this movie released nowadays, people would rip it apart for being so sexist, even though that's the whole point. But some of the lines take the sexism idea and goes with it.
Stand aside! That creature's not worth protecting.
She's a hero.
She's a woman!
That's bold. And I think this is the best looking Disney movie of the 90s era. It looks so damn good. And that's something I don't really notice. The visuals can't really save this movie for me though. It's still good, but I don't really care for it all that much. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. Is this at least an okay remake? No. Is it at least an okay movie? No. I hated every part of this movie. It takes the idea of removing stuff too damn far, as there's no Mushu, which is my favorite part of the original. There's no songs at all. I know I said I didn't care for them before, but at least it made it feel like a Disney movie. Li Shang is barely in the movie, and is older. The side characters were made even more forgettable, and there's no Huns! Who thought this was a good idea for a Mulan remake? Raise your hand. Whoever's idea it was to remove all the parts of Mulan that were enjoyable needs a special place in hell, because it makes this movie unbearably hard to watch. The only thing that they keep from the original is the character being named Mulan and the broad outline of the plot. The movie also adds this witch character who doesn't do anything, and magic? Seriously? The most outlandish thing we had in the original was the ancestor force ghosts and Mushu. But that was rooted in Chinese culture, where this, I turn into bird. Every character talks about chi and shit, but what does that even mean? All the performances as well were so shit, with every line being so expositional. The whole thing is just so serious and boring to watch, and lacks any of that Disney whimsy. You know what I'm talking about. And this shit goes for 2 hours! I can't believe Disney allowed this movie to assault all my senses. Don't watch this movie no matter what. Pinocchio is the oldest movie we'll be looking at in this video, being made in 1940. 84 years later, and this movie is still okay. This is the story of the puppet brought to life and wants to be a real boy. His nose also grows when he lies. Just like Dumbo, the whole nose growing thing is done only once. Goddamn Shrek used this better. I've come to accept disappointments like this, but it's a shame it turned out like this, because it could have been used to help Pinocchio become a good person, or puppet. There's a lot of just strange elements in this film which caught me off guard. There's a fairy that brings Pinocchio to life, a talking fox just strolling through town, and an island that turns kids into donkeys, which, by the way, is horrifying. The kids are screaming out for their mama as they slowly turn into donkeys. This shit has 100% scarred the kids who watched this, and I would have been too. I also saw a film theory that Donkey from Shrek could have been from Pleasure Island, and I believe it. And if you made it through this trial of bravery, there's a massive whale who tries to eat people. Can we watch something else, please? Keen-eyed viewers might have picked up. What the fuck is this plot? It is pretty batshit crazy, but the events don't really connect to one another. Pinocchio goes from house to circus to Pleasure Island, which is a gross name, and then finally to inside a whale. Pinocchio is kind of forced into these situations, and I feel bad for him because brother just wants to go to school. The connective tissue just isn't there for the movie's plot to flow nicely, and I'm sick of going easy on these older movies. Anyway, okay watch, and I can sleep soundly knowing that everyone who worked on this movie is probably dead. The Pinocchio remake follows the same mentality the Lion King remake had, where it pretty much just updated the original. The same loose events happen, but there's clearly more effort to connect what happens better. Like we see more of Geppetto looking for his wooden boy, instead of him just ending up in a whale. And his character is done a lot better. We get hints of Geppetto once having a wife and son before the events of the film, which is a nice reason for why he would wish for Pinocchio to come to life. He actually acts realistically to seeing a living puppet. And Geppetto is even played by Tom Hanks. Why do these movies have such stacked casts? The movie still has its magical elements and keeps true to Pinocchio's quest to be a real boy. The characters are still a joy to watch. There are a lot of smaller details in this movie, which goes to show the care put into it. Like most of the cuckoo clocks are references to other movies, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because the director of the movie directed that one. And Toy Story, since the Tom Hanks connection. Monstro is now a full-on sea monster instead of just a whale, and now he has tentacles. Yum! The Pleasure Island section is just as off-putting as before, and I like that the music goes from whimsical and upbeat to more sinister as Pinocchio grows more and more uncomfortable. They did a good job capturing the feeling I got from the original. I was kind of expecting all the CGI characters to look like shit, but they actually look really solid. Pinocchio looks ripped straight out of the original. There's this new chick who doesn't really add all that much, but it's nice that she's here, I guess. I'm just shocked this didn't even release in cinemas. It was straight onto Disney+. One thing I wasn't a fan of is how Pinocchio got out of Monstro's mouth. See, in the original, Pinocchio was chucking back some darts, which caused him to almost throw up. Then later, he used smoke to make Monstro also throw up. He learned something from his short life, but in this remake, he never partakes in a cig, so it just feels out of nowhere. This remake goes into the good category, and you should definitely watch this over the original. And Pinocchio deserved a remake. More people need to watch this movie. Man, this movie sucked. But Tom, it came out in the 50s. I don't care. Granted, I have started to get some fatigue from watching all these damn Disney movies, but I could just not get through this piece of fiction. It's really thanks to the characters. Peter Pan is a creep, Wendy is boring, her brothers, who I can't remember the names of, are forgettable. Tinkerbell's a bitch, the Lost Boys are annoying, and Hook is... actually, he's fine. All these guys suck. And there are Indians who look like this. Yeah, I think this movie has aged the worst out of all of them. And by the way, can someone tell me what happens in this movie? Because nothing happens here! Peter takes Wendy and brothers to Neverland and just flirts with Captain Hook the whole time. There isn't even anything engaging, or at least a little bit interesting happening, which strangely makes a movie hard to sit through. And I thought there was a message of accepting growing up, but apparently I gave this movie too much credit. And you know what the worst part is? I have to watch this movie. Again. Judging from the last review, you're probably thinking that I didn't like this movie. Well, I actually did. It's shocking, yeah. And it's all thanks to the characters being greatly improved. Now, it's still not a fantastic movie. The actual plot is still very bare bones. Some moments feel really goofy to me. And John and Michael still don't have anything really to do. But the improvements made to the characters carries the movie in my eyes. Wendy is more of the main focus, with the title changing to reflect that. And she actually has a character arc. Throughout the movie, she comes to accept growing up, as that theme plays more of a role. She does this by her encounters with Captain Hook, who they made more of a tragic character. Hook/James was Peter's best friend, and the first lost boy. They had their fun on Neverland, but when James started to miss his mother, Peter banished him from Neverland. James got lost at sea, never saw his mother again, and grew up with pirates, and returned to get his revenge. Him and Wendy reflect each other, as Hook represents why growing up can be a bad thing in the wrong conditions, while Wendy will grow up in a better one. Why did this movie make Hook my favorite character? I like that this kind of paints Peter as the bad guy, and as we see as the Lost Boys mention their parents, he doesn't react well. Peter's backstory is told at the end, and he tells Wendy that he lived at the same place she does, and that he ran away because of his mother. It was nice that the movie filled in some of the blanks, as there were a lot of questions from the original. Tinkerbell is nicer to everyone, the Lost Boys aren't annoying anymore, and I'm actually having fun. They also reference the hit game Among Us.
Because if you don't know stories, then you're an imposter. And you know what we do, the imposters.
The flying scene at the start is really good, I think, even if there's some weird angles. But it took me a while to get used to Peter and Tinkerbell here. It's just the hair, I think. Having them both just have black hair is weird to me. Peter's shadow is also more in the movie, instead of getting one random scene at the start. I like this movie, man. Unlike many of the other movies I've watched in this video, I've never seen The Little Mermaid in any capacity, and it's a good time. It's very visually pleasing to look at, since the characters are so vibrantly coloured. I really like all these characters and their worldviews. On the other hand, I really wish we had some kind of solid reason to why King Triton hates humanity, but you get the idea. They catch and eat fish. That should be a good enough reason. Ariel is a good character because she has the teenage stupidity that makes her do the dumb deal with Ursula. You sympathise with her desire of wanting to be with this hunky prince. And the challenge of getting him to kiss her without talking is engaging to watch. I also love Ariel's fascination with human shit. Fuck! The romance element is done pretty well. But were people sick of the idea of love at first sight in these Disney movies? Like I am? It's pulled off most of the time, but it happens so damn much. Especially in this era. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Eric's voice actor is the same fella who voices Spider-Man in the 90s show. Go watch that video. One thing I didn't expect was to think that all the songs were kind of mid here. I just can't really get into them. I don't know why. But that's only a small part of the movie, so it doesn't bring down the rest of this great piece of brain food. Holy shit, we're almost done. The vital movie in this video, fuck. The Little Mermaid remake sticks pretty close to the original, but doesn't eclipse it in my eyes. Everything is done pretty well. Ursula is just as wicked, the romance is still pretty solid, with more scenes of the two growing closer, and Sebastian is CGI now. I think the CG works well for the sea creatures, but I have an issue with Ariel, and it's not because a black actress is playing her. I just hate what they did with her hair. It's not all that close to the color of the original, and it really throws me off. What's up with the 2023 remakes, and making the characters' hairs inaccurate? This greatly upsets me! It also just looks really gross. Ugh. Eric's mother is in the picture. You're meant to be parentless, you dick! The writing I feel is very clunky and doesn't feel natural whatsoever. Do I like this movie? They cut the opening scene that shows off the kingdom really well, and had a great way of introducing Ariel's headspace. And King Triton has zero life. The original Triton had him actually smile, but this one just pulls his face for the whole time. Cheer up, man. Honestly, the original is better in my opinion, but I don't think you'll be offended by this movie. Holy shit, finally I'm done. I 100% underestimated how long this video would take, because it took me over a month to merely watch and script this video. To answer the question, are these remakes necessary? Yeah? Some worked better than others, and it gave the older movies a chance to shine again. If Disney was smart, they would use this as a groundwork to remake those shitty Disney sequels. They have the scripts right there, and it could give these movies a chance to make money. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna have nightmares about Disney. No, Michael Mouse, no!